Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Vital MX post-race show. Round 4 of 2026 Monster Energy AMA Supercross has been and gone. That was Houston in NRG Stadium, our first visit there for a couple of years, our first Triple Crown of the season, a new winner in the 450SX class. Yes, there's plenty to talk about on this episode, and all of this discussion is of course made possible by our valued partners, who you will hear a little bit more from a little later on in the show. So much to get to, as I said, but I think we'll start with this, our first Triple Crown of the season. I find myself becoming less enamoured with the Triple Crown format, looking forward to it less, and dare I say longing for traditional racing. I don't know, how do you feel about it, Michael Lindsay?
Kind of the same. I would say not as much. Like the 450 class definitely threw some flair into it. I mean, as Tomac himself even said, he picked the perfect night to have an off. Triple Crowns are very forgiving for at least one traditionally bad race, so it is interesting how that plays out. The 450 class was decent across the board between all three races, but the 250 class gave me a strong reminder that Triple Crowns can go very well or very bad. If you have pretty competitive racing, you have a good shot against the three races of having a good race. And then when you have the 250 class in the state it is, where nobody can step up to race Hayden and everybody just keeps throwing it away in the first corners or weird stuff, then you end up with a race where you kind of have to almost sit back at the end of the night and go, I don't remember what happened, because there's not much of note to go off of.
Well, whether there's a lot to take in or not much, I feel like remembering what happened is always a tricky element of the Triple Crowns.
Yeah.
I think
was it main 2? Was it main 3? Was it?
My main feeling with Triple Crowns is I believe I'm less engaged, just because part of what I love about the Supercross main event is the jeopardy involved, the fact that blowing that start is everything. Whereas watching the starts for the Triple Crowns, it's a little bit more like, he'll get him next time. Oh, they'll figure it out for the next main, you know? I don't know if the consequences of it are maybe lessened to a degree. And I think that's somewhat controversial because you listen to all of the post-race chatter and all of that, and the narrative is very much a case of every move counts, and that one pass that you failed to make in main event 1 loomed large at the end of the night. And that is true to a degree. I don't know. I feel like maybe it is coming down to the fact it's too complex to keep a hold of. But put it this way, I'm excited for a bit of traditional racing come Glendale this weekend.
No, I agree. Again, not to be the lame white noodle and be like, just give me my Supercross, but I am looking forward to it. I think the other tough thing with Triple Crowns, tell me if you feel like this, and I don't know if I think it's partially the length. I think it's also just partially that it seems like the normal schedule is the third and final main, to your point. Whatever happens on the start, whatever happens the first lap, especially in the case of the 450 class where we actually had a lot of riders, vying for the overall for the night. The third and final main is only one where I finally feel a little bit of an anxiety based on the start, and you actually are really tracking what happens to somebody. Or you say, especially in main 1, you're just like, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the answer to this, and I think this has been thrown around, is you have an outdoor format, 2 motos. Maybe that would be the perfect mix in the middle. And also, that would potentially lessen what would be the correct way to frame this? One of my biggest takeaways or talking points, let's say, on the Triple Crown format leaving Houston is the fact that we had a tie for second place with Roczen and Hunter and a tie for fourth place with Chase and Eli. And in outdoors, a tie is whatever, because yes, you lose out on an overall position, but points-wise, it doesn't affect the situation at all. Yes, bonuses are affected, and that is quite critical in the eyes of these riders. But it's weird to me, and I don't know why this is now hitting me after Houston, the fact that because Roczen didn't make that one pass, he tied on points with Hunter, but he was given third place points versus second, and similar with Chase and Eli. And it's a bit weird that they tied, yet Roczen and Chase in this instance are paying the price championship-wise, and at this point we all like to dream that it's going to come down to the wire, and maybe this looms large, and when it shouldn't, because they tied. The championship points just tell otherwise.
Well, and then the other part I was going to say to you is it minimizes winning in a sense, because, a traditional points format, let's say the 3 races, whether it was a 2 or 3 race format, like I said, like outdoors, it paid per moto. The win's way larger because of that points gap. It's, I can see in the guys' position, it's not always worth the risk because there's no points gap inside the top 3 where, the results would look very different if we were paying per moto.
I just don't know if the justification of, so why did Hunter get 2 more championship points than Kenny? Oh, he beat him in the final race. I don't know if that actually is acceptable. I mean, that sounds quite aggressive, but I don't know if that is relevant in the championship picture. Again, yes, overall for a round where it dictates the position you stand on the podium, whatever, who cares? But championship-wise, it feels like a kick in the gut for Kenny and also to a degree Chase, because he, of course, tied with Eli.
No, like I said, 100% agree. It's just, yeah, when you end up in that type of situation, you look at it kind of at the end of the night, it's like, well, and don't get me wrong, some people might view this as us saying like, oh, participation trophy. It's like, no, the guys did an equal job in a sense, but we're not treating it as an equal job where, like I said, Pro Motocross kind of solves that. There is an overall, but the points make sense where, yeah, this format makes me scratch my head sometimes.
It is nice, though, to have a winner who didn't win. I think that adds an element of intrigue. It kind of really magnifies the effect of the Triple Crown, adds another layer to the racing, to the viewing experience. And we have a new winner in the 450X SX class, Cooper Webb, who I'm not surprised. I mean, I came on this podcast last week and talked about how positive Anaheim 2 was from my position. So I feel like we were trending in this direction with Cooper Webb. And yeah, crafty, made it happen when he needed to. I don't want to say vintage Cooper Webb, but it was certainly shades of that.
Oh, I agree. Especially, we end the second main event with Eli's dragging the brake incident. And as soon as the second main, when I was over, I'm like, of anybody that's going to go back to the rig, do the math, know where they're at. It's Webb, and Webb's going to make it happen. Third and final main. This is why he steps up when it's time and can claw his way back into this and make it happen. It was interesting that, I know even just the way the legacy of their career, and I brought it up actually in the press conference to Kenny, because it was really cool to see him and Cooper after the race so genuinely like talking about the race, the track, a lot more chummy, and they've been better for years, but compared to, where they were, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, 5 years ago. It is interesting that somehow it comes down quite often to those two in these weird pressure situations, throughout their career. This has happened, especially in Supercross.
Well, always in Texas as well, for whatever reason. Texas is the battleground for Cooper Webb versus Ken Roczen. Does this change your outlook on Cooper Webb much moving forward? Are you now banishing any concerns after the first couple of rounds? Are you all in on the Cooper Webb experience? Or are you a little bit more, let me see how this trends moving forward?
So I know for our preseason show, of course, I picked Webb to repeat. I've still said since the first round, the partial side of me has not wavered. I still, Webb is my title favorite. The impartial side of me, yes, was even worried. And I agree with your sense of like last week was trending up, but also as we talked about on the pod last week, and I was saying it was very he wasn't getting into somewhat of a do or die situation of podium or a win to get this thing fully on track and start, clawing back on the deficit. But as I've also always says, I haven't wavered and haven't been worried because, again, if Webb had a slow start to the season, I know this has still been a slower start than any of his other championship runs. It's always as long as Coop is in it by, the old classic saying, as long as he's there by the time we go east, by the time we get to an Arlington or a Daytona, as long as he's within a sniffing distance of it, it's fine. Because he's one of the few that can claw it back mid-season and turn his own fortunes around, and it doesn't require the bike setup. It doesn't require a lot of things. Like, he can get himself back into this.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of editorial on Vital this week or week just gone about the fact that Webb does typically start somewhat slow. Yes, maybe this was slower, but it's not like he comes out and lights the world on fire through January more often than not. Maybe Tomac's January woes overshadowed the fact that Webb plays a similar strategy more often than not, especially first half versus second half. You look at Webb's career, 5 seasons out of the last 7, his second half average has been better than his first half average, and critically, in all of his championship winning seasons, that's been the case. And even taking that a step further, it's true of Webb's starting positions. Second half, he tends to start better than the first half. A weird coincidence, but I think it's definitely worth putting stock in moving forward. And moving forward, no, I don't have much concern about Cooper Webb. I think we're going to get traditional Cooper Webb. I would put money on the fact that we've now corrected course to the point where we can expect Cooper Webb in the top 4 9 times out of 10 moving forward. I think that will be the norm once again. Although the caveat here is Glendale's next, and we know that Glendale is a little bit of a bugaboo round for Webb. So I say that almost regarding Glendale as a throwaway, and if next week we're on this podcast and he came 7th in the main event, I will almost disregard it and say that was expected. Normal business will resume this weekend in Seattle, talking next week, and Seattle, of course, typically one of his better venues. So an interesting juxtaposition of venues coming up for Webb between Glendale and Seattle.
Well, and to your point, then if Glendale, in a sense, goes good, it gives you a good trajectory for him of how much this weekend was, how much it meant to him, how far on track he is if he has a really solid Glendale. It was interesting also listening in press conference talking about, I keep calling it press conference, sorry, media scrum. He put, he talked about how he feels like he put too much stock in the first 2 or 3 races. He basically straight up said, we kind of saw him at A1, the incident with Plessinger in the heat race and what happened in the main, kind of very un-Cooper Webb-like of him rushing things, of him trying to force the issue. And he did say, he goes, maybe I put a little too much emphasis in it and cared a little bit too much to finally do good at A1. But he said that, he definitely did try. He said he tried too hard at the opening round or 2. And he, kind of took on the chin as he felt like he set himself back through that.
Again, maybe you never get a truthful answer to this. I wonder if that's a result of A, wanting to start the season strong, wanting a good Anaheim 1 result, or is the title defense situation such a PTSD situation for Cooper that he was just desperate to get a title defense off to the right start, on the right track, just for peace of mind? I wonder if the whole title defense storyline narrative with Cooper Webb actually ate at him a little bit more coming into the season than maybe we were all led to believe. I mean, those media days in December, he mentioned it a few times. Again, we discussed it on this podcast, how he pulled the similarities to 2022 when he was on an all-new model from KTM, So it's obviously there in the back of his mind. I would almost bet money that a lot of his insecurity, let's say, came more from the title defense than it did Anaheim 1 history or January history.
I think that's completely plausible because, again, going back to a couple of things he said, he stressed that it was disappointing and mentally taxing on him. And he said, it just happens sometimes in your career because he has mentioned before that in past title defenses, I think was his first title defense, he's been notable about this, about probably not doing the correct amount of work and maybe taking it a little bit too easy. He basically said that he felt like he put in the best offseason in his career. He goes, I've ticked every box. I've done his words was, I did everything right, and it still wasn't working. So, yes, I agree with your sense of it kind of came across as a man that's like, I'm doing everything to make this happen, and it's not going my way. And he seemed to, again, put a lot of emphasis into, I'm going to do all the right things and make this happen, which comes from somebody that, I imagine looks at his past misgivings in defense of defending the title and is trying to right all the wrongs and leave no question marks. So when it doesn't go well the first round or 2, that's got to, again, weigh on you quite a bit when you're like, I'm doing everything possible. Why is this not working?
Well, it wasn't working because of his starts to a degree, and we've now had 6 main events, if you want to count each Triple Crown as an individual race. And across the whole shot line, he has been in order 4th, 7th, 12th, 5th, 5th, 7th. So it's not dire, is it, across the whole shot line? The first lap position is actually a little worse because of various factors that go into the first lap. But still, we get to see Cooper Webb get a great start. He's had good starts, if you want to call it that. And in talking to Cooper and Rich, the team manager on the 450 side, it doesn't seem like there's the same level of panic with Webb starts as there are with J-Coop. They're not necessarily testing for that. They're not necessarily searching either. They're just putting it down more to a situational circumstance. And it has been that, although less so in Houston. And I still wonder, is going, what did I say, 554? 557 across the whole shot line. Is that acceptable for Webb, or is it time to maybe lift the lid on some start research?
I would say maybe in years past that would be considered a bit acceptable when you look at the current points leader and guys kind of, I wouldn't say control of the championship, but leading it, of course, is Eli Tomac has fixed his starts in a sense. And it was very interesting to listen to him on press day talk to you because, you've gone a little bit of flack before for some people feel like you've asked him too much about starts, but you've asked him honest questions about what's going on with it. And to listen to him kind of cop to, they haven't been very good since 23. So in the getting back to the Webb part of it, yes, those start numbers maybe in years past would be a bit more acceptable, but when, in a sense, your primary competition at this point is doing it across the board better than you, yes, I would agree that if we trend this way for a couple more rounds, in Webb's case, it might need to be seriously addressed.
The final main event was most impressive for Webb. He had that weird, scary, dramatic situation over the finish line where he could have very easily been collected, landed on whatever else. He did very good getting out of the way there and then pushed through well. Like, he moved through the field, the top guys as well, some of them, to win the overall. So that was definitely his shining moment. But after the race, I was surprised to hear Rich say that they kind of sat Coop down this week and had a word with him about whoops, because I feel like Coop's been good in the whoops thus far.
Yeah.
But Rich was quite adamant.
Are we sure Rich wasn't talking about the wrong Coop?
Well, he got a talking to as well. But supposedly they had quite a serious discussion about needing to lock in on the whoops. And I feel like I've not noticed that as a Coop weakness. I think we even credited him on this podcast last week for some of his runs through the whoops in the A2 main event.
Yeah, A2, and I thought San Diego, he was doing quite well in the whoops, and we've talked about how Coop on the Yamaha is better, theoretically from what we've seen, better than ever in the 450 class in the whoops, so I am a little shocked to hear that.
Confusing. Also confusing for me is the fact that Yamaha Motor USA are a sponsor of this podcast, and I need to fit them in somewhere. But do I do it after their 450 main event win, their 250 main event win, or their SMX Next main event win? What could possibly be the right scenario? I don't know, so I'm just going to say it now, because I've almost started it with that, haven't I? Congrats to Yamaha Motor USA on a fine night in Texas. A lot to celebrate, as there always is, over at Yamaha HQ. And if you want to look a little further afield, they also had Tim Geiser debuting on the YZ450 FM in Europe for the first time as well this weekend. So a lot going on at Yamaha, as always, and we thank them for their extensive support of everything that goes on at Vital MX. So Hunter Lawrence, second for the third week in a row. He's now had... what is the stat? 5 second place finishes in his career. And I think the most second places in a premier class without a win is 6. So we're moving in on the all-time record. And let's just plug and play what we said in the last couple of weeks, because Hunter was great. Hunter may have been the best guy. Hunter could have won quite easily if things had just broken slightly differently. There's no concern moving forward for Hunter. What a great start to the season. Yes, he's winless, but he may as well have a win. It's that good. And the win is coming really soon. And that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, it was a weird one. Even post-race, you see somebody in his situation, you want to ask, hey, the second's great. You're second in the championship. You're only 4 points out, but is it eating at you yet? He did get a main win in the Triple Crown, which is very easy to overlook. And even, I know anybody in that position, on one hand, it's like, yes, I won, but on the other hand, nobody counts it. So it's still, you almost want to say it's the whatchamacallit off the back, the
monkey?
Thank you, the monkey off the back, but it's also not. So he still has to actually get it done, as we would say in the real deal in a main event. So it's close. And on one hand, I would say if at the beginning of the season you told me that he was just getting repeated seconds, I was like, man, I would think in my head, like, oh man, that sucks if he can't quite get the job done, especially where he's been so close in the way the situations have played out. But on the other hand, he is, it's weird to say, he's not leading the championships. He can't say he's the most consistent guy, but in a sense, he's the most consistent guy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think the danger here for the competition is Hunter may be the perfect blend of Coop and Chase and Eli, and he may have a little bit of the best of everyone, from consistency to starts to raw speed. We've said it a time or two, but what is your overarching negative with Hunter? There isn't one, although it has kind of started to come to light more and more that maybe it's sprint speed, and even Hunter has been vocal of the fact that heat races are his least favourite race of the night. And now putting two and two together, I'd imagine because there's quite a lot of sprint and get up and go in those. But then with that in mind, I went into Houston almost putting a conscious view on his first main event, expecting that to be his weaker one. And it was on the scorecard, but because of a crash, not because he was maybe working through cobwebs and whatnot. Although, worth noting, that crash makes this maybe his most self-inflicted loss of the season thus far.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the others, he's battled through them in close, but when you look at it this weekend, yeah, within his grasp, completely up to him and a little bit of a throwaway there. Yeah, it's tough because, the only negative, in a sense, Hunter has in his playbook against all these guys is just that early race sprint speed. But again, so consistent in the Triple Crowns, but the standard main events continue to play into his favor. The longer they are, the better.
Hey,
he can claw back. So I'm really curious, though, once he gets... We know he's going to break through and get the win. I'm just curious that once it happens... So, riddle me this. The field kind of keeps playing out how it is between Eli and Webb and Chase, and we kind of see what we keep seeing. Hunter gets a win. Does that unlock it, break it? Is that a breakthrough where now they come more often, or is there a chance that we get to the end of this championship and he has, he goes down to the wire in the title, but with like one win to his credit, maybe two, one win and just a slew of seconds and thirds?
Entirely possible, yes, but not because he's not good enough. I think the Hunter's good enough to go on a run of wins. But if I was in his corner, I think I'm almost taking some of the pressure off victories and being like, this is more than good enough. Like, yes, a win would be great, but let's not put so much emphasis on that and do something dumb trying to get a win out of the way. Because ultimately, you don't need to win races to win a title. There's countless examples of that over the years. How many times has a rider with the most wins lost the title? 2025 is an example of that. So I think what Hunter's doing is just perfect. I really do. I really, really do. And I'll be interested to see how this trends moving forward because I don't see it slowing up anytime soon. And as I said, I truly believe that he has some of the best elements of all of his competition. Except, similar to what we would say about Coop, except for if Jet's on track, I don't know what Hunter has for him. But in this field, I think Hunter's various skills and what make up his skill set are more than good enough to get this job done. So, yeah. Kenny, third overall, back on the podium. Difficult Anaheim 2, of course. So he righted the wrongs a little bit, got back to his consistent self, but got to be a little bit bittersweet because ultimately the win was right there and didn't even end up second because of a tiebreak, as we mentioned. It's fine. It's not spectacular. Maybe you would have wanted more, but ultimately it's kind of, got things back on the right track.
A little bit. There's still a part of me that, again, back to our preseason conversations, it's hard to say because everybody is, with the way things played out this weekend, it timed it all up. Everybody's, within reach of this championship. It's still so early. But the fact that Kenny continues not to quite finish the job in terms of wins, I kind of, again, I'm going back to preseason conversations we had. I felt like for Kenny to make a run for the title, there had to be wins early just because of how he trends over the season. So amongst the top five or so we're talking about in this title, his title path worries me the most, concerns me the most of the group right now. Again, everybody's got a shot. There's no issue, but do you agree with that in a sense, or amongst that group? Would his path to it kind of confuse you the most or worry you the most?
Yeah, that goes without saying. Of course it does. That goes without saying. That's just history, and there's not been anything so far that indicates this is different to history. That is literally a wait and see situation. But I don't think that anyone believed that Kenny was going to potentially win the title by just being outright the best guy. It would be sort of a gamer situation. So yeah, stay tuned as well. To the upcoming MXGP podcast shows because Suzuki are coming. We are on our way back, and the MXGP podcast show is all over this developing story now on both sides of the Atlantic and whatever ocean is between Japan, whatever that is. Pacific, no one knows. But the MXGP podcast show is on this, so stay tuned to future episodes of that for Suzuki developments. Little plug there. But once again, Suzuki showing more and more interest in what PMG is doing. There's been Japanese there at different rounds so far this year, and it's coming. It's going to be a great day when it happens. It's going to happen sooner rather than later. There's going to be an electric star. It's beautiful. It's a big, beautiful picture over it. It's bright.
I made a comment about the electric starter they had been messing around with in front of one of their riders on press day, and said rider looked at me and goes, "We don't need to bolt it to this. When do we just get the bike that comes with it?" So I do know that's still, as much as, the whole kickstart thing's been overplayed. Some people drag it through the mud, some don't. It is what it is, but there's still something that some of their guys are looking for, waiting to see. I think the latest I had heard as of recent would be probably similar chassis to what we see now, but yes, an engine overhaul is in the works, and I think that's what you would see potentially debuted when they come to MXGP. Most likely is really an overhaul with the engine completely, because again, the basis, there's been tweaks, but the base design of that engine is still from '08.
It's all coming. We are in the thick of a Suzuki renaissance. Eli got fourth, which I don't know what specific example I'm thinking of, but I swear there was another race where Eli crashed spectacularly and minimized the damage because it was a Triple Crown. Yeah. Maybe it was A2 in 2023?
I'm trying to think of which one it is, because that's literally when it happened. On one hand, we tout Eli for being really great at the Triple Crowns, and then as soon as it happened in the second one, I remember while third one was getting in the gate, I was thinking about the possibilities for the night. I'm like, there's a good chance Eli will minimize this, and that clicked in my head the same way. I'm like, he's done this before, but I'm trying to think of what round it is, but he is salvaged a Triple Crown.
Yeah, and how about this? So last week we talked about Eli's crash at Anaheim 2 in 2023, where he hit a tough block, went flying over the bars. Very spectacular. Was that Eli's last big quote-unquote crash? I think so. I mean, maybe who knows what's happened at the farm and in Arizona and whatever else. But as far as at a race, I want to say that was Eli's last big get-off that kind of caught your breath. It doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, I'm trying to. I was going back and look at Triple Crowns from last year. He went 6-for-1. I don't know. I was trying to figure out why. No, the races, it is very un-Eli-esque. So, I mean, when the crash happened, because, again, we've seen the injuries where he's been out of the season, or the dumb ones with the Achilles where he just rides off the track because nothing happens. So, actually seeing him have to his own words, when he goes, "I can't believe I'm jumping through the bars right now," is his comment. I think even it catches him by surprise. It does not happen that often to him anymore at races.
Yeah, a lot of people drawing comparisons between that crash and Chase at Ironman in 25. But Eli was so quick and adamant in our post-race interview that it was a self-inflicted error. He stomped on the rear brake. Like, there was no hesitation of, yeah, it was weird, or any of that. It was very much, I'm an idiot. I'm so mad at myself. Dumb thing that just happened. So I don't believe there's any correlation there. Although pursuing the wrong path, but I can understand why people would look at the two and think that.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, I will say I was super impressed by his night. Up until the point of the crash, it seemed like he was going to be the best guy across the entire evening. Even how he rebounded, because with Eli, there's always a question mark. He has that crash, makes up a few positions, but kind of seemed to stall out, and you wonder, okay, is he riding tight? Is it something on the bike? Did he tweak something? What's going to happen in the third race? Comes out with a great start in the third race, actually goes backwards a little bit at the beginning, and instantly you're like, oh, maybe the crash has got him riding tight, has affected him, and he just rebounded from it. I not say, of course, Eli's completely capable of that, but that did catch me maybe a little more by surprise in the third race, based on how it started the first lap or two. I was like, okay, he's going to slip back a little bit. This is not going to happen tonight, but he rebounded so well in the third race.
Yeah, without doubt. And he said again that he was a man on a mission. He did have a point to prove because he felt like he was the guy all day. And is that accurate? Was this Eli's race to lose? Was he the best without doubt? Is it a conversation? I mean, the time that he set in Q1 was incredible. I want to say it was over half a second quicker than anyone else.
Yes.
Starts let him down across the night program, so maybe we didn't really get to see that sort of dominance simply because he didn't have track position. But I think I would agree with him. It was his day.
Mm-hmm. No, it was. I can see again why the frustration of your own mistake and knowing that, hey, Eli, should have, would have, could have come out with an overall win and extended his pointless lead. Instead, he has luckily the cushion to work with, but he let everybody kind of claw themselves back into this conversation. He still holds the red plate, still controls it, but that was his to lose tonight, and he did lose it of his own regard.
He was on the backup bike in the last main as well, which is, I think, interesting to people because there are often comments from the industry about whether a backup bike is needed. It's a lot of work. Do we just scrap that element of the Triple Crown? And perhaps when a team utilizes it, it's not actually publicized too much. So just interesting that he did, in fact, go that way. And you mentioned his start in the final main. Finally, his first great start of the night. And the first two main events, he was on the outside of the doghouse, which is kind of a classic Eli move. It was also a great position for the way the first turn was laid out here. But bad starts. And honestly, first Triple Crown of the year, you're a little rusty. When I saw his gate for the final main, which was inside of the doghouse, I thought they had changed the rules. And there's no way that he got that gate pick with 13th gate pick or whatever he was in the second main. And he agreed that it was absolutely insane that gate was left open when he went to the line in 13th. I was absolutely baffled by the fact that he managed to line up there, and it worked.
I know what you mean, because I remember looking and thinking the same. I'm like, wait, I had to reprocess that. Sorry, sneeze. I had to reprocess the gate choice rules for a Triple Crown because it was surprising to see him still get that gate choice. I will say, though, even when I looked at the math, don't get me wrong, 13th, he still could have salvaged more, but I was actually almost surprised he still got 13th in that second main. I thought he was a little farther back than that before I looked at, before the third main started. I actually had to look at the results and try to do some math real quick.
Yeah, it's all very confusing with a Triple Crown. Even now, I don't really understand how Hunter didn't win because it felt like he was in prime position, and there was
yeah. Well, like you said, Hunter's is that first main toss away because. Similar to argument, you could say we were sitting here saying this is Eli's night, but also Hunter's being self-inflicted. I would go back and go, okay, if Hunter wouldn't have thrown away the first main, again, he would have had a podium in the first race and then a 1-2. I don't know how that would have played out with Eli's crash, but still, both of them phenomenal nights. Both, just cost themselves.
Unfortunately, I didn't have time to do this before the podcast, so stay tuned for this to be in an article this week. But I was going to, or I will, write down the starting positions for each rider in each main event and work out the Triple Crown start results, standings thing. Because it is quite curious because, okay, before Houston, I would have told you that Eli and Hunter are the only riders in the 450 class who are consistently getting good starts. I'm a little shakier on that now with Eli after the Triple Crown because they were a little more inconsistent. Hunter's were still fairly solid, although not perfect. And truth be told, I think starts and the inability of these top guys to nail them consistently is the overarching factor in the current championship standings. And I bring this up now because leading into Chase Sexton, his starts are without doubt the worst of the leading group, the leading five, let's say.
Yeah.
And that
they're so
screwed
hot
him.
And cold.
I don't even. Are they ever hot though?
What was it last week? Did he have one? He'll have one or two bangers.
No, A2. His start was bad, but he lined up on the inside and snuck around and came out first or second.
Did he hit the gate again this weekend?
I need to I haven't rewatched it yet.
I heard somebody thought it hit the gate.
I think he might have gone and not hit the gate, but gone early,
Twitched.
but caught himself or whatever you want to say.
You know, I'm trying to think here. We had a great, of course, weekend last weekend for Chase, and I'm still befuddled for this weekend. I was talking to Rango going into the weekend, and he said his time card was another 100 plus hours this weekend, 2 extremely late days at the test track. We just talked about before we got on air is Chase was on my flight next to me back to California, which I don't think he was scheduled to this weekend. I'm worried or confused. We came off such a good weekend, and I'm worried we're going to get lost again. I agree with you. The starts need to be worked on, but do we need to be chasing around this much on everything else, or do we need to settle down for a couple weeks?
I feel like it's turning again. I feel like it's all turning because even in practice,
Turning which way?
No, I mean that's what I feel like. That's the focus with all of his testing. Because in practice, again, his turns just looked really notchy and uncomfortable and unsettled.
Yeah.
I think all of the testing and all of the work, quote unquote, is focused around getting himself to turn better. I think that is the main number one item on the to-do list. And again, as we said last week, there have been talks in various conversations that is a sticking point, a slight funk with the current model KX450.
It's interesting because, like, I mean, I just had this conversation the other day with Kiefer. Like, for anybody that's on long generations, the current gen Cowie has more front end input than any Kawasaki ever has before. So, I mean, before this, you were rear steer or die for generations on this motorcycle. I get the point, and I agree with you because Chase has been vocal about it. You saw the difference at Anaheim too. We saw this weekend. It was notchier. We kind of went backwards in the turning. But my question there is, we found a direction, but then we're chasing it. Are we making, like this last week, can you sit there and confidently say the 100 hours was progress, or did we go the wrong direction? Like, are we worried? That's what I'm getting at is they had this whole off season of chasing it. They got something at work day 2, and now we're chasing again. Do we just stick things out for a round or two and build from what worked at A2?
I don't know. It's impossible for me to answer that without having an interview with him or whatever else, Like, I'm trying to think back to what he was saying about the bike in that A2 interview, but I can't quite remember. Turning, all I remember stopping him and saying, turning's going to be your thing with this bike, isn't it? Like, that's going to be the thing you're never happy with and you're always working on. And he said yes. So that's where that comes from, as well as a history of KX riders. I mean, it's hard to say. It's impossible to say because also, were the improvements made for A2 relevant once we go east? Like, was that why they were working hard? That also could have factored in. So, I don't know. I think it's difficult because I think you can commend the attitude and the outlook that it can always be better. But there's also a time when that becomes to your detriment. You can ride the wave, but you've got to know when to settle into the wave.
We're going to bring up some surfing references for now. No, because I go back to, I hate to say this is what triggered in my head a little bit was it one of the last times you were on the Pulp Show and they were teasing you to be Chase and they kept bringing up the bike and you were being over the top like, but it could be better.
Yeah.
But it could be better. And that's, I hate to say it, but in this situation, your it could be better thing pops in my head where I'm like, it could be, but are we chasing perfection? Like, do we need to just ride it out for a little bit, understand it more? Do we need to not chase perfection for just a little bit?
I mean, clearly whatever was done this week or whatever was chased, quote unquote, didn't work in Houston. Although, again, did it though? Because the start sucked. The final main event, I think it was the final one, he came from like 17th to
he
top
was
5
20
insanely quickly.
He was 21st in the first rhythm lane. There was one rider behind him. He came through the pack. It was absolutely outstanding.
First main, from memory, I thought he was going to win, but like we lost some steam towards the end. But again, it was like, wow, look at Chase go sort of outlook. So I don't know, like the result, not good. Should have gained points on Eli on this night. That's not good. Starts, terrible. But it's not like it was just like, where's Chase? You saw Chase out there, as in like elements of the chase. So I don't know.
I will say, at least in the grand scheme of things, and we'll see how it plays out the next couple weeks, is as we go down to the wire, it sticks into the end, we will be able to potentially look back at this round and be like, well, this was the mulligan in the sense of if this was a night that hadn't happened to Eli, in it, let's say next week and they come back with something closer to A2 and we're good. Or they just find a different direction, whatever it is. You could look at Houston as a lost opportunity, or you could look at it as, hey, great time that we chased this idea. It didn't work because, yes, he lost points to Eli, but he only lost 1 point. Everybody timed up. In the grand scheme of things, if he could have picked a night for it to go sideways, we'll see as it goes down the road, but this might have been the night for it to just not work out.
Yeah, Glendale will be interesting just because it's quite a unique round, So, I mean, maybe the turning is better when there's less ruts. Maybe that's the element that we're trying to figure out here. I don't know. But points-wise, I don't think it's really a situation worth addressing yet. But the fact that Webb just gained 9 on Chase is perhaps... you've lost a buffer there over one of your main competitors. So that's not ideal, is it?
Well, yes. The one thing, like I said, though, it's kind of interesting is I stated before the last 2 weeks, one of these guys getting back in the title hunt completely plausible. I was curious to see if both of them could evenly claw their way back into it. And I mean, at the rate we're going, they are technically both evenly scratching at that points deficit over each each had an individual performance that is getting them back into it. Now I'm just curious to see how that keeps playing out. The final main event with Chase, again, I'm shooting. I know a lot of guys got hung up in Anderson's pace. What happened from your perspective, or what went down as everybody was trying to get around Jason, and what caused Chase to lose toe?
Well, Anderson stuffed him, and that's when I think Webb got him just before that, but that's how Kenny got him. And what I saw was the rhythm after you cross the start, it was he fluffed that once, maybe twice, and it was almost like he never recovered from that. Like, it was almost like that one mistake set the tone, which was weird in itself as well. Obviously, a lot of guys were mistiming and struggling to nail the rhythms consistently, but that was very much a point in time. And if I can figure out what lap it was that happened, it'll be curious to look at the lap times before and after. But that definitely was like the tide is turning, just that one section, and then Anderson kind of sucked all the wind out. But Anderson stuffing him, it wasn't that bad. Like, you would expect him to just be like, and off we go again, I don't know.
Speaking of Anderson stuffing, did you at any point, the opening part of the race 3, when he retaliated against Eli, because Anderson did say after A2 when Eli got aggressive with him that, half joking said he had one coming. When I started to see that play, I was like, oh no, Eli is trying to claw back the result tonight, and Anderson potentially could bite him in the ass if Anderson chooses to retaliate, which he didn't really against him. And not that I defaulted that Anderson would ride like that, but that did cross my mind for a second when the third main started. I was like, oh no, he started next to somebody that's got some fresh memories here. I don't know how that's going to work for him.
Didn't cross my mind, but I am confused by Anderson because clearly in that final main, he was motivated, had self-belief. Like, it looked like a man that was like, I'm going to win this. And he was going in that direction very early on. And then, similar to A2, it just stopped. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But also, funny, I forget which main, the second or third, he stuffed Kenny kind of accidentally. I don't know if he knew it was Kenny.
Yeah.
And then, like, almost waved Kenny by. And it was such an act of, like, I'm sorry, please don't blame me for this. It was an accident, You could tell he must have not realized it was Kenny, or, I don't know, blacked out, or I don't know.
Kenny did mention the post-race press conference. And it was fun. I was reading the comments. Some people said that he was complaining. I didn't really get that. He kind of sided like that he got very stuck in Jason's pace, and he felt like his exact words is, he goes, I wasted so much time, and then got stuff and he let him by. He didn't, he wasn't pissed at Jason, but he was definitely like, I blew that. And, a little bit maybe of like, why did Jason hold me up like that? But also kind of blamed himself for just getting stuck there and wasting time. Speaking of Jason, not Jason, but you were mentioning Chase in the rhythm lane. I actually forgot to talk about this at the beginning of the show, the track. Surprising amount of talk from riders about what they call the quote-unquote bananas in the rhythm. They were on each far side of the track, the weird, really tight, not quite a double, but not quite a tabletop rhythm. I had a rider bring that up to me in the tunnel, like, what do you think of the banana? And I completely did not know what they were talking about till they explained it to me. And then I think it was 250A time qualifying. Yeah, everybody's like, yeah, they're just the whole entire tunnel. Everybody was complaining about that rhythm lane. And I will say, walking up to it, I don't understand what the track crew was going with on those. Kenny, a lot of the 450 guys said it was extremely sketchy because you basically had to over jump into the pocket to create pop and lift to get out. But the pocket was so thin that they also said if you slightly got it off, you got no pop and would almost die.
Yeah, I don't know. So the bananas have been around for 2 years or so, from what I hear. I don't know what the reason was for them being like added or what the purpose is. Like, why not just have a normal transition? But based on the number of complaints in Houston, my bet would be that we see significantly less bananas from this point on. Maybe none. I feel like Houston may have marked the death of the banana.
Well, even on, they utilized the one press lane or one lane on press day. So many riders were complaining about it. I heard a couple saying, yeah, we said so much to Dirt Works. I bet it's changed for tomorrow
they did.
morning.
A lot of the riders were complaining that it was such a beefy section on press day that they tamed it down. And I think that's part of the reason why the racing was so processional, is because maybe some of the technicality or some of the risk was taken out of the track design after press day.
It's interesting because Kenny quoted in his mind the opposite. He said that it was by far one of the most sketchiest. He said it's the sketchiest track of the year. It was one of the most technical, that if you were even an inch off on any of the rhythms, it would completely ruin the section and almost throw you to the bars. Like, he was fairly vocal in the press conference that was one of the worst tracks he had ever raced, and thought it was, the risk on the track was extremely high for what it was. And then also quote how fast it was. He basically said that he was not impressed basically whatsoever with the design, layout, and the jumps.
Yeah, I thought Moserman was going to punch me because I used the wrong word, but obviously the racing was quite follow the leader. Everyone was just doing the same jumps, and ultimately it was a race of who can do the jumps the longest without screwing one up. So I said to Moserman, I think that how easy the track was kind of dictated the racing, and he wanted to punch me. But then I guess I meant simple the design was, or I guess that's more what I meant. I don't know.
Or completely one line, because they mentioned even though it was a rhythm heavy track, like Kane said, there was no option. Like, it was very clear cut what the fastest rhythm was, and it was very hard to maintain that rhythm across the race. He said there wasn't really an optional line that worked across most of those.
Well, let's head into Prado time, and that can be presented by Motorex. Motorex, known for high-quality engine oils, also has an entire line of clean care and lube products to keep your bike running strong and looking great. Maintenance made easy with race-proven Motorex clean care and lube products. Thank you to Motorex for their support of this podcast, and I support Jorge Prado fully. He could have won on this night. He certainly could have been on the podium. He was in the mix. He was brilliant. A valuable step forward was taken, and I believe in Jorge Prado in Supercross fully. I think that all of the doubts have been slayed. I'm excited to see where he is in 2 years' time. I think by then he's a winner, a multi-time winner. And yeah, it's the start of a beautiful story, a beautiful chapter of Prado's career.
I agree he could have been on the podium. I don't agree he could have won last night.
Halfway, 3/4 through the second main, he was your overall winner.
Yeah.
Just needed to maintain. Hey, as I was once told, if you can lead one lap, you can lead them all. If you can lead the points after halfway through the second main, you can lead them to the end.
You can lead a lap. Talk to Mike Alessi. We can lead a lap.
Well, it's not that simple, obviously. That's a self-belief thing.
I do, don't get me wrong, I do agree with, in 2 years, yes, he has definitely won a main or multiple. The talent's there, the skill set's there, the growth is there. It is interesting because, and again, it's completely self-inflicted. Let's start with that point of how people doubt him or view him after last year. However, similar to last round or round before with a bad start, I heard some people comment afterwards of, yep, see, he's completely hopeless without a start. Can't even ride through a pack. But that third and final main, he actually got about as far back as Chase was. Yeah, he didn't make it as far as Chase did, but he still battled his way through. It's still an improvement of where he was. What was the round at the beginning there where he was completely hopeless? When he was completely hopeless in a pack. We have seen improvement of him being able to race around people, that comfort growing, being able to move through and make passes, and it will continue to improve.
Highly controversial. We have our big five. Is Prado the best of the rest? I think it's Anderson.
It's. I understand what you're saying. Anderson, because of what we've seen, like he has the. I don't know where he has that top end speed, but he kind of falls into a weird middle category outside the top five. I would say, yeah, we have our big five. Anderson right outside that, and then Jorge, I feel, is tiptoeing right below him, but I also could see Jorge surpassing Anderson in that conversation, depending on how the next couple rounds go.
Yeah, let's say this. If you have your big six, including Anderson, then Prado is your best of the rest. Fine?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad we got there. Jumping down a little bit, Jacob finally got a good start, and what a moment. He just did absolutely zero with it. Just, we were waiting and we were waiting and it happened and then it was like a wet balloon, a limp biscuit, whatever else you want to call it. Yeah, I don't know. I think Star still baffled by the situation. They've tested cable clutch, they've tested clutch internals, they've tested everything that they can with Jacob and starts. And it doesn't seem to be getting better because we can play this game again. Jacob's position across the whole shot line across 6 main events: 15th, 17th, 11th, 12th, 4th, 13th. And I don't know. I mean, if there's one positive here, Jacob did say that he's really getting better at passing people because, as we decided and figured out, he was a bit of a Prado character when it came to that element. So like Prado, they're both making progress. But let's put it this way, simply, speaking of, 4 rounds in, Prado is without doubt, I don't want to say without doubt, 4 rounds in, Prado is better than Justin Cooper, and that's not cool for Justin Cooper fans.
Well, I agree, especially for a man that's in a contract year, and there's a lot of talk about where he could be next year. To your point, yes, they clearly have tested a bunch of clutch stuff. They showed up this weekend. They stuck with Hydro, after doing the test they did, but they swapped. They're basically on the ARC unit, which has a ton of adjustable components. And Thrasher ran it last year. It's floated around for a couple years. So it's just, we kind of talked about this before. It's just crazy to think of the conversations we were having about J. Coop 2 years ago. Start up front's like, oh, if he could just hang in there a little bit longer, if he could just show a little more sprint speed, if he could be a little, let the guys by a little bit less, if he could, battle a little more when people are behind rhythm, he can be on the podium, he could potentially win a race. And again, for a man that potentially could be out of his current job by the end of the season, this is not a good look because there is a bunch of interesting chatter in the pits of like where G Coop go is definitely a conversation point because there's not. It's a hole in the 450 class. Yes, there are some contracts up, but there's not expected to be a lot of movement. So J. Coop is, what somebody told me, potentially the first domino to fall, more for 250 guys that are looking to try to get 450 verbiage in their contract. There's a couple of people that are kind of waiting to see what happens with J. Coop.
Triumph. Seems logical.
Yeah.
But no, I hate saying that because let's not forget, again, recency bias sucks. And I think it's very important to be conscious of that when analysing the sport as we're doing here. First 2 rounds, the riding, the times were brilliant. Superb. I was singing his praises. So yes, we've lost some of that edge, but that is still there and that was just 2 short weeks ago. Equally, I don't know if this is wrong. I don't know if we've had a timing glitch, but I'm going to presume it's correct. The final main event, okay? The final main event. Fastest lap times. Justin Cooper, 46.610 on the final lap. Second best lap time. Eli Tomac, 47.402. So if this is accurate, which I have asked around and I'm yet to get any sort of... I don't know how anyone would know. But if this is accurate, then on the last lap of the final main event, Justin Cooper set a lap time that was 0.8 faster than anyone else.
And that's like that. What was the time again? 40? Do you say 46.6?
46.6 compared to 47.4.
And that's as good as Eli's best qualifying time, correct?
I briefly looked. I think in the first main, there were a couple of 46s around.
Okay.
I think Chase had the fastest of the night, which was a 46.3 in the first main, but I haven't really dived into it. So if that's correct, that is another point in the evidence column of Anaheim 1 and San Diego of, wow, this guy can ride if he can figure it out.
I have a question for you. Speaking of figuring it out, how do we view, or how do you think the sport, the industry, and fans view his situation at Star Racing? And what I mean by that is, would you argue that over the past 3 or 4 years, Star has been the best 450 class team? And how would you argue their support of Justin, of like kind of the classic, hey, he's been here, they've put all this effort into him, it's not working out, it's somewhat going backwards at the moment, and let's say the year trends that way. Do you look at it as like, oh, go somewhere else, refresh yourself, it'll come back around? Or do you think some people would look at it as a concerning, like, well, he's been at the most successful place that was around the last couple of years, how's it going to get any better anywhere else?
I just think that Justin Cooper had a great 250 career and he came in with a fair amount of hype because of that. And now he's almost a victim of his own hype. If he was Garrett Marchbanks, if he was kind of any other rider coming up from the 250 class, he's been praised for what he's doing because he is the ideal backup rider on a factory team, I would say. And that's been proven outside of Hunter, of course, and maybe now Prado, but we can save that conversation. And I think that the only reason he's not getting the credit for that is because we all, to a certain degree or different levels, believe that Justin Cooper can be amazing. And that's causing us to look on him negatively rather than positively. I think, again, if you're Garrett Marchbanks and you're posting these results, or, I'm struggling to think of another example, but you're just being celebrated. Like, what a great find, Imagine if Kawasaki's second rider was doing the results that Justin Cooper is. We'd be like, oh, that's solid, yeah, what a good solid base they've got there with their second guy. We just expect more from J. Coop.
Well, and back to that expectation, I go back to what we've said on this pod 2-3 years ago when he was first, dabbling in 450s and they were making that transition. Me and you were both high on him. We even said on certain episodes around Silly Seat, like as the end of the year, like, hey, a team should take a chance on this. Somebody should put that effort into him and try to make him their guy. So looking back at all that, do you feel like even our expectations have been misplaced when you look at where he is now? Or do you feel like they were justified and he is coming up short on them?
Everyone's expectations were somewhat misplaced because clearly Justin Cooper cannot lead a factory team unless it's Triumph, Ducati. Triumph at this point needs someone who can just be on the track consistently, and that is J. Coop. So, that... And again, perfect second rider. Kawasaki are very tied up with Marchbanks, Kitchen and whatnot. If Kawasaki had room, send him over there. That would be perfect to sit next to Chase. Exactly what you need. He's going to be a victim of, he's not flashy, he's not great enough to dictate the market and force his way through some closed doors. That'll be the element that perhaps spanners his career, not spanners his career, but just holds him back as far as opportunities in the paddock. Let's say that. But actually, let us know in the comments. Did you buy into the Justin Cooper hype as he moved into 450s, or is this about what you expected? Let us know. That'll be an interesting debate. And yeah, let us know. We'd like to hear from you. And you know what? Maybe coming up, we'll do more fan interactions and whatnot. Coming up, we will do more fan interactions and whatnot. So stay tuned for that. Get your buzzer fingers ready, as game show hosts like to say. Joey Savacci broke his big toe in practice, so he was dealing with that. Of course, broken toes aren't the end of the world, so he'll keep on plugging away, but that stopped him from being as good as he has been recently. If you'd like a broken big toe on your graphics, I know that DeCal Works can make that happen with customizable options. It would be quite peculiar to put a broken big toe on your bike, but hey, DeCal MX doesn't judge. They just support. And you could head to decalmx.com to see what they can do for you. Much more than graphics there, of course, the official graphics supplier for Red Bull KTM Factory Racing, which is no mean feat. If you are trusted to supply product to the KTM team, then that means that you do one heck of a job. Without doubt. Thank you to DeCal Works for their support. And moving over to the other Quadlock Honda rider, I feel sorry for Christian Craig because 12th is not an accurate representation of just how good he was. I presume he fell in the first main event because apart from that, his starts were back. 8-8 in the final two races. He was a fringe top 6 guy, which was great and a massive step forward for Christian. Just the results don't quite show it, which is a shame.
Tough one, and again, it's depth of field because you're looking at Malcolm, who, prior to the shoulder injury, I think we were expecting more of the season. You look where Jay Coop is, where Dylan is. Christian, on one hand, some people might look at this and go, "Oh, it's not that different than what we've seen before." I do agree with you; he's riding better than he has in his 450 Supercross career so far. As a whole, when this whole entire season wraps up, do you think Christian will do enough across the year to change people's perspective, or will it be so clouded with the depth of the class and other things that, the general fan or the maybe not as invested will not see anything different from this year for Craig, even if it is technically his best 450 season?
Too early to say, because we don't know what way it's going to go, and more often than not, the results don't actually dictate perception. It's how the results are achieved. For instance, most people who watched Houston will remember that as a great Christian Craig ride, better than 12th place. So I guess it depends how... Does he get whole shots? Does he start in a top 5? Because although the old saying is you'd much rather start 15th and go to 7th than start 3rd and go to 7th, if you're in Christian's position, you start 3rd and go to 7th, that puts you in much more in bullseye, in the focal point of fans. Whereas look at Justin Cooper, fairly invisible, and it takes people like us to be like, hey, look at the lap time, look at the sector time. And you don't always have that. So, yeah. I think we are done with 450s, unless you've got anything you'd like to add, but I'm done.
Two quick questions for you on 450s. One, RJ, speaking of the Justin Cooper conversation, would it shock you if RJ ultimately, in his first 450 Pro Supercross season, manages to surpass Justin Cooper in the point standings? Do you think RJ is capable of it? Yes. Do you think it will happen?
No.
No. Okay.
Jacob is better than this. Again, listen to the preview pod. I was a Jacob naysayer. I have somewhat been converted. If you want to go further back, I was a Jacob believer, then slipped into a naysayer. Now I'm being converted back into a believer based on the intricacies of what we've seen. Again, it's getting a little tougher because A2 and Houston weren't as good, but I still see some positives to lean on. And although if you want a negative with Jacob, if there was ever a set of whoops to skim, you had a run in, everyone said they were fairly small. If there was ever a set of whoops to skim, I think it would have been these ones. And he did sometimes, but there were elements of jumping. And the amount of time you must have lost having to set up to jump when everyone else was just clicking fourth out of a flat turn and pinning it, I can't even imagine. So, I don't know. Positives and negatives. Honestly, if I was Jacob's agent, I'm probably sitting in a room and convincing Star to give him a pay rise and fire him at the same time.
You're playing good cop, bad cop.
No, I'm not even trying to do that. I'm just like, hey guys, look at all of this. It's great. But also I understand that we want more results. And they're like, wait, are you for him or against him? This is kind of the Jacob puzzle. But anyway, way too much Jacob. 250s?
I had one more question for you.
Go on.
Do you see any life out of Dylan that we're gonna get past 9th, 8th this season?
No, this is Dylan.
It's quiet.
This is Dylan on a Phoenix Honda. This is Dylan on a Star 450. This is Dylan. And let's not forget, I used this with Triumph. I'll use it again now. Compare this to Aprilia. Like, it's good for Ducati to be top 10 in 450s already. Because Aprilia couldn't do jack shit. Well, they did more than jack shit. Coppins did quite good in MXGP. But, Aprilia was just such a bizarre situation, and there have been many new bikes similar to that. So for Ducati to come out and put a bike in the top 10 consistently in 450 Supercross, that has to be a success. You feel the need to be dragged across to criticize and whatnot because it's already been established as the norm, but we've got to maintain some perspective and just say that's good. So that's what we'll try to do here on the Vital MX post-race show. Congratulations! Oh, and he's got another one.
Nice. I don't want to hear anybody say the Tie Master Pull deserves a factory ride for Supercross again. That was my last 450 note.
Congratulations to Fox Racing, who swept the podium in the 250 SX class thanks to Hayden Deegan and the two PC boys. It was always coming. We all saw this coming. Fox Racing are just covering the field with some of the best looking gear. And now they get to celebrate success and spray some champagne on that as well. Thank you to Fox Racing for their support of this podcast. To be bold is not a choice, it's an attitude. When you're set on making history and pushing boundaries to get there, attitude is everything. It's not just about standing on top of the podium, it's about growing the platform, progression, self-expression, and the risks you're willing to take to change the culture of motocross. That's bold. What's also bold is I've just read the old Fox Racing read instead of the new one, which was just below that text. And I don't know why my eyes went to that. Maybe because Fox Racing's so bold that Second Nature, which is actually the title of the second read, which actually I didn't mean to link that, but that works perfectly. Second Nature for me to just presume that Fox Racing want to be told how bold they are. So here we are. Congrats on a podium sweep. Much love. Congrats to Hayden Deegan also on the 250 West Championship. Really signing off his 250 career with a bang. It's over. Stick a fork in it. Congrats. Well done. And I wonder if he can win out. That's where we're at.
Yeah, he said this weekend answered one thing. We've given Levi the benefit of the doubt coming into the season that, or even based off, just his riding and qualifying and everything that, hey, Levi could be the fastest guy in this series. We just haven't had the chance to see it. And as a friend told me today that Kitchen might be the biggest, in his words, blue balled rider I have ever had to watch, in the sense that he goes, I feel like we're just going to keep seeing it, and it just doesn't come together. Hayden is the best in the series. He is the fastest. He is the most consistent. He is the best in shape. He's the best qualifier. That's it. That's it. Simple. Nobody else gets anything out of this one.
Yeah, to clarify, the Deegan fans came at me this week because I said Kitchen may be the fastest rider in this class, maybe being the critical quote there. And Houston answered those questions because we finally got to see them go straight up. And the second main event was incredibly commanding from Deegan. It all was. It was all brilliant. Deegan's amazing. Honestly, what more can you say? It's tough because he is handling this class way more than I think anyone expected. And he should win out, maybe. I think that's my new... he's going to win a championship. He's going to win most of the races. Let's see if he can win out. That's the point to watch. A point not to watch is in multiple interviews. One, I believe, the Scrum. One with Jamie Guida of Motorex Pod. East Coast 450 races are not on the radar, not going to happen. Steadfast in his resolve on that topic. So don't look for that. He wants to clinch this 250 title and give himself a good shot at 450 outdoor success. And that includes a ton of training in the interim. So congrats to Deegan once more. Kitchen finally got a result, and he's told me after the race that there was a little bit of Anaheim 1 rust in Houston because this was finally a chance for him to race at the front of the pack, battle up there and whatnot. And yeah, he just had to kind of find his racing feet again after the off-season because he's not really been in that position. And I think there's truth behind that because you look at the second main event where Deegan worked him to the feistiness he had in the final main event, and you could almost see a transformation in his racing IQ, if you want to call it that, from one main event to the next.
No, I agree in that sense. It was, I don't know, the one downside with Hayden's domination, this racing in general, is I will say it made the 250 class Triple Crown. I'm trying to replay everything in my head because it just kind of goes by.
The West Coast is on life support. It really is. Yes, it's incredibly weak. Is. I mean, of course, the top 6 is solid, good, but the 9 to 12 range is just it's weak. And
I'd say even worse than 9 to 12. I'd say 6 on back is maybe a little aggressive. 7th on back. I mean, the bright sides we're getting the storyline, or what we're seeing, of course, is Hayden is doing what we questioned coming into the season. He's dominated outdoors. He's dominated SMX. He hasn't done Supercross. He's dominating it now. Kitchen and McAdoo are kind of doing what we know they're capable of, but not rising to the occasion fully. DeFrancesco is maybe the only other storyline that I'm decently caring about at the moment as Ryder D rebuilds his career and has been really consistent and solid and had some good flashes so far. Past that, I'm very concerned about the West Coast. I feel bad. because again, all these riders deserve their dues for their performances, etc. But yeah, it's not the top of the list of anybody's conversation points right now. And I'm not trying to be rude. I go back to saying I talked to my friends. I had multiple people mention that to me in the very short amount of time I've been home that they're a little checked out on 250s right now.
But again, maybe that should be the case. It is a support class. Maybe it should be a class you check out on. I don't know. Like, is it a bad thing? I would argue not. I would argue it's actually a worse thing when the 250s is maybe more exciting than the 450s. So it's a funny one. It comes back to the tradition of the sport and whatnot as well. Speaking of tradition, how funny would it be if one day PC Kawasaki started testing Yoshimura pipes to see if they could find a little bit extra performance? That would be wild, wouldn't it? Ha ha ha. Well, it's possible. They can do it because there's championship proven power at Yoshimura. You can upgrade your, well, this is KX450, but, give the gist. Well, give me that one. It was a lovely transition.
You were doing your damnest.
No, I hadn't pulled up the read yet. I forgot it was only KX450, but it worked. It was funny. It was unique. You didn't expect it, listeners, did you? Really shoehorned it in nicely. So let's just give me that one, and we continue on. The 2024 to 2026 Kawasaki KX450 and KX450X can now be taken to the next level with the refined performance of the Yoshimura RS12. Developed with direct input from six-time national enduro champion Stu Baylor, the new RS12 full system is engineered to deliver increased torque and usable power right where riders need it most. If you own a KX450 or KX450X and want proven performance on a track or trail, trust the name champions rely on. Find yours at yoshimura-rd.com. I'm sure Pro Circuit can test with them if they want still. We'll find it. We'll figure it out. McAdoo on the podium again. Honestly, outside of A1, he's been very solid. And A1 was shaky, but he's kind of proven the naysayers wrong, and I think I may be one of those. He's been consistent. There's not been any horrid moments. It's been nice to see.
No, it's been the most on Cameron-like season in the sense of we haven't had a highlight reel moment. And yeah, I remember we had that discussion preseason because you were much more like, hey, it's a rebuilding season, this. And I know Nick, Katrina, Mitch even came out and was like, no, he's ready to get race for podiums, race for wins. That's why he's here. That's why he does this job, etc. And yeah, I guess, on the other hand, though, I still fall back a little bit on what he said because this isn't a Cameron season we've seen so far. He is very solid. He is very consistent. So I also could argue that you're partially right in the sense that a little bit of rebuilding or re-sculpturing his career. We're building a foundation. We're not just going for broke at the moment.
Well, the ultimate question there would be, is this a conscious decision or is this his peak? Is this him going for broke and this is what he's got? Or is he actually riding within himself to make it to every race and stack points? I guess that's a question we'll never quite find out the answer to. Be interesting.
I don't know. I feel like with his riding style, it's usually fairly obvious. I feel like he is riding within himself because unless he figured out something new, when he pushes, it's usually very obvious.
Well, he needs to figure out something new, that's for sure. Speaking of Deegan, actually, I forgot to mention this, quite interesting. Brent Duffy, his mechanic, was fined by the AMA for, quote, contacting another rider with his pit board. Now, I presumed that meant, tapping a rider hitting knuckles, similar to the Joe Shimoda thing from last year. But people on Twitter have taken that as contacting via a message. That's not what it was. I'm certain it was, a rider tapping his pit board, maybe due to negligence or, not paying attention to the racing situation. But that's a new AMA rule for this year, and there will be fines to mechanics. Which, have there ever been fines to mechanics? I don't know.
If I can think of, that's definitely a new one.
Yeah,
actually,
I'll read you the exact wording just to, protect myself here to give everyone confidence. Race Direction reviewed video evidence of a rider interference situation where the mechanic of rider number 1W contacted another rider with a pit board during the race. This is a new addition to the 2026 rulebook, section 1.6.21. A fine was issued to the mechanic of rider 1W. So there you go.
Can I ask you while you have that pulled up? It's a rider farther down we were going to talk about, but is there a explanation? Somebody I saw her mention that Volan got a championship points penalty. Does it mention what his
Rider
was?
number 19 penalised 3 championship points for exceeding the post-race maximum sound limit.
Okay, yeah, I see the note here.
There you go. And Voland actually rode very well. Voland deserves some credit. I feel like similar to Jacob, maybe quite a quiet demeanor, not overly flashy, so it's not right in front of your eyes, but he is making very valid steps this year. I would imagine a podium is right on his doorstep. It could have quite easily happened in Houston, and he deserves credit, as do Club MX, for what they've done and are doing currently. Yep, cool. Yep. Do you want to say something nice?
It is. I'm very curious because Volan's the only member of the team that is not currently signed for next year. Well, I shouldn't say only Simonson as well, but Yoder, Malinowski is signed for next year. Cody's still an existing contract, but Volan's is coming up at the end of this year, so I'm actually kind of curious to see how that plays out, if there would be a different direction or if they'll do an aggressive early signing like they've done with some of their other riders.
He'll stay because the handbrake is a hold-up. No, he would need to be so dominant and so good to go to another team and demand a handbrake, you know? So I'd imagine that just pigeonholes him at club, which isn't a bad thing, clearly. He's having his best showings at club. Moving on, Max Anstey, very interesting post-race interview where we all learned something new, which is great. The air pressure in the stadium was the reason why he sucked in the first 2 main events, because it was so cold in there that it made his bike slower. No, sorry, I've already screwed that up. It was so cold in there that it made his bike faster, and he couldn't control the RPMs and whatnot out of the gate, almost looped out, blah, 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 was complaining that his bike was too fast, and then finally, they figured it out for the 3rd main, slowed it down a little bit. Bob's your uncle. He's chasing down Deegan. So there you have it, air pressure made the Star Yamaha too fast. And now, the benefit of this is Star have air pressure notes and settings for air pressure in stadiums, and it's beautiful.
Interesting. That is definitely one, makes sense, but also one that I would never,
Honestly,
I will go with it.
MVP award. I've got the pant thing with Voland last week. I've got the air pressure with Anstey this week. We are really unearthing some new ideas in the world of SMX. I wonder what next week's going to bring. I mean, I'm sure Chase will have something up his sleeve. Like, hey, we've added this to the bike this week. Oh, never heard of that before. It is funny though, like on from the pant to the air pressure, we are moving through some very wild takes. But Anstey even pulled up his phone in the interview and showed and said, I don't think this is confidential, and showed the air pressure report with the numbers. And so we're deep in the air pressure. And now that's going to become a constant in my interviews. Oh, did the
How was the air pressure this weekend?
Yeah, did the air pressure affect you? Like, I've got a built-in excuse. Any rider who I want to help out and they're maybe a bit down, I'll just go, well, I don't think this air pressure is really ideal for you. You know, you're not really a 1.2 air pressure sort of guy in my mind. You need more of a 1.6. That's going to be...
we're going to have a new trend in the sport.
Well, if it's not pants, it's air pressure. I want to give credit to Ryder D because he's only 2 points out of second in the championship. I have no idea where his starts have gone because he was once a brilliant starter and we're not seeing it, but he is moving through well, and I would like to think if he gets a great start, he can run. Certainly, obviously, he can run podium positions. He's come from the back to do that. But I don't know where it's gone. Part of me and part of talking to him, I kind of believe that it's a result of Anaheim 1 maybe heightening expectations and he wants this so bad, but it would be nice to see his starts come back. And that's all I've got from 250s. So anything else?
Only one I was going to ask you, and I think I probably know your answer to this. 250 West season as a whole, who's impressed you? Who outside of our big name group we're talking about? I'm guessing Yoder, or do you have anybody else that stood out to you?
Yoder. Matty Jorgensen? Is that a deep
He's
pull?
had some. Jorgensen's had a couple. I mean, he's missed me, but he's also had some really good performances. To get third, not this weekend was a little rougher, but I think the weekend before was like a 13th.
Yeah, I'll go Deegan, Yoder, and Matty Jorgensen, which could be the start of a joke. Deegan, Yoder, and Matty Jorgensen walked into a bar, and no one knows where that joke's going, because when would you ever get that group together?
Yeah,
But ultimately, real talk here, the 250 West class is just full of disappointing performances across the board. Also, finally, should note, Kitchen did say in the media scrum that they did whole shot device testing because it was sticking on too much, and said it's not fully sorted because it's still stuck on too much or whatever, too long in Houston. So there is a real issue there. Maybe it's the air pressure.
Air pressure is holding the fork down.
Does
too much.
Yoshimura make a whole shot device for a KX250?
You should get on that this week.
I think we're done.
I think we're done.
Great podcast. Well, that's a bit much. Acceptable podcast. It was good. It was fine. We've recapped Houston, and now we're on to Glendale. Round 5, traditional format. 450s, we have quite a lot of unresolved questions, so we'll get answers in Glendale, and 250s, we'll watch Deegan win again. But it's going to be exciting one way or another. Thank you for watching and listening. Thank you to the partners, and we will see you next week.